2, 1. We are live.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
And we are here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, depending on when you watch it or listen to the show. And we are here, no snobs or knobs. And this week, our esteemed host Riz has decided we're going to pick out chefs. And before the show, we were talking about cigars and whatnot, which we can actually talk about before we pick our esteemed guests.
Can I refine that slightly? It wasn't just chefs, it was foodies and people who drink and food. And it could be chefs. Right. Let me give you a clue as to how far I've taken my little portfolio again.
Right.
By the way, as I was mentioning to you before, in the green room, my cigar of the last 6 months, Cuaba Salamones, obviously Cuban. This is hypothetically what I would be smoking with the bunch, with the motley crew that I've coming in this program. What would you be going for?
I am going to smoke a pre-embargo Cuban H. Upmann.
When you say pre-embargo, is this the
pre-1962?
Oh, I see.
This is like
when your wife lets you back in the house.
That is very true. Right. So this cigar, I have a whole thing of pre-embargos that someone gave me, and this one is probably like 1960.
These are the best. I love the silver capsule. Yeah. It's got that sort of that old world feel.
Yeah, and just so we're clear, there's a stogie in there.
Yes,
so
and it's
possibly
away in your hands.
Like I know, right? Because that's because we keep them.
Oh my God!
What we're going to do?
Look at the band. The band is so oldie worldy. It's like
look at that.
There's some history in that.
Yep. And so my
vanished on the
and I'm afraid to smoke them. And one of my friends laughs at me. He goes, "They're made for smoking." I'm like, no, they're made for me to look at. And I have other pre-Cubans that aren't as beautiful as the H. Upmann. So I may smoke those on the show next week. But yeah, there's a ton. I've got like 50 pre-Cubans that somebody gave me. So I'm like, ooh. And by the way, I did wear a jacket for the show, a Mandarin jacket, just so we're clear. So I whatchamacallit. So I'm very excited about my pre-embargo pre-Cubans, which are apparently legal in the United States. So there you go. Someone actually offered me money for my Cubans, my pre-embargo, because they have a provenance, an auction house
hard to get
in the UK. They offered me money, and I was like, nah. And they offered several times. And I think, yeah, I'm good. I was like, I'm good. So
that's your next week's smoke, is it? Is that
I think smoke? one of the pre-embargoes will be my next week's smoke, unless something else I ordered comes in, and then I may have that. So we'll have to see.
So that's actually quite cool because next week we're going to have an interesting cigar battle whilst we're smoking whilst we're talking about our guests. We're going to have this and drinking and etc. and etc.
Right. Not drinking, kids. As Dean Martin would say, it's my first drink of the day in my left hand.
And you very conveniently give me my first guest.
Please.
Dean Martin.
Oh, do you love the Dean Martin?
I was holding him off for later, but you invoked his ghost.
Yes.
Now. And I thought, wow, what a person to have at the dinner table, because he's going to drink everyone under the table too. I think I read somewhere very recently that was a little bit of an act that he had going. He wasn't really as
bad as they said,
as he came across as being.
Yeah, he drank, they said, tea. His daughter did an interview, and he said when he would be on Carson, they would just give him like tea to make it look like scotch, and then they would just fake that he was drinking, whatever. And I was like, well, that's interesting. It's like, all right, maybe. I mean, and then again, who knows? We weren't there. But I mean, and everybody that knows him, from Sammy Davis Jr. to Joey Bishop to Don Rickles, they're all dead. You can't even ask them if it was a gig. Jerry Lewis just died, so it's like a year or two ago. So it's kind of like you can't even ask anybody, was it a shtick or was it real?
It looks real. It looks very real, and it looks real because it was quite sustained. It was like if you see any of his programs or any of his. I think I used to watch a few of the Playboy Mansion get-togethers where Dean Martin appears, and then obviously the roasts. It's quite sustained. He's always like that. Now, whether he got very good at being that way, or whether he actually just was that way, I don't know. But I'm being honest with you. What a sense of humor. What a dinner guest. What someone that can laugh and smile at everyone else.
Everything.
And just keep going and then break out into a song.
When I was a kid, NBC, I want to say it's either Wednesday or Thursday night at 10 o'clock would have the Dean Martin roasts. And they'd have all the celebrities, and I would stay up and watch that, and I would just be on the floor. It was the funniest thing to see that.
It would have been quite cool, actually. I would have given it away. I really wanted to come in this evening or this afternoon or this morning wearing a dinner jacket, open white collar, the bow tie undone.
I have one. If you next time you tell me, we'll dress in tux. We'll dress.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? Why don't we dress for dinner next week? Because we'll have the cigars and scotch going. There is a time difference. You might be sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I might be sitting here at 8 o'clock in the morning. But that doesn't make sense.
And my neighbors are going to look and go, what the heck is this guy doing in a tuxedo? And then realizing I have 3 more shows after this show that I have to do. So I will be in a tuxedo for all the shows next week.
Well, that's quite cool. That's a theme. That's a theme. Yeah. You could always go back in history and tie those 3 or 4 programs together. That was one day. That was one day. That was one day when we just decided to be. And the good thing is I don't have to wear pants. So I like that's another thing. Top half tuxedo, bottom half pink shorts. You know, the Miami look.
There you go. Yes. And in Miami, it's a whole nother thing. Well, see, that's an interesting guess. Dean Martin. I like that. So I picked 3 very interesting and way different than this guess. So I'm not sure where to start with, but I think I'm going to start with, since you chose a real person, I'm going to choose you said it's always fictional or non-fictional. So I chose Willy Wonka. But the Gene Wilder Willy Wonka.
You're too good at this. This is the second week you've done this. You've given me someone that oh my goodness, that
But the Gene Wilder one. The Gene Wilder, not Johnny Depp or this new kid. And I will say the new Willy Wonka movie was great. But the Gene Wilder one I saw as a kid, and in that one he was almost like a psychopath. And that would be fascinating. And the Oopa Noopas there were better.
He did the rumor has it, or legend has it, that he did the movie based on the fact, this is Gene Wilder, that he would be allowed to have a cane to walk out in his first shot and do something unexpected. Because the implication was then for the audience that everything is unexpected. He can do anything.
Gotcha.
But yes, I agree. I concur. Gene Wilder as Willy Wonka.
Yes.
As a dinner guest.
Yeah. That's a beauty.
Oh, what a concoction that would be. That would be
with Dean Martin and him together. That would be, oh my God.
You've done this before. I think you've done a couple of programs like this before. You've really got your eye into the ball, haven't you?
Here's how listen, when we started this, it was like, just pick people you want to have dinner and cigars and whatever with. And I'm literally go through, depending on the subject or the category, I'm like, who would I want to sit with? Like who? Like your guess, I always like, but your guess I always love, and I'm like, I never thought of them. And so, like, one of us thinks like the first half of the alphabet, and the other of us thinks like the last half of the alphabet. So together, as I always joke to like the guys I work with, we make a full person, right? So it's like we have these. It works out great. So. Yeah, Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder, that would to me would just be, and he could bring the Oopa Noopas. I mean, we need a lot of cigars, but I mean, that would be awesome.
I suggest that he may not bring the Oompa Loompas, but from time to time throughout dinner, you'd see one appear next to you, and you'd see one disappear, like cats and dogs walking around,
bringing you cigars and scotch all night. That would be and chocolate.
So will Willy Wonka be smoking a chocolate cigar?
You know, that's a good question. I would want Willy Wonka, the Gene Wilder version, to smoke a regular cigar, but I'm assuming he would bring a chocolate cigar. So I'm assuming he would be smoking those chocolate cigars we all had as kids.
And Dean Martin, absolutely, cigarette,
Smoke a cigar.
no cigar.
Oh, that's right. He'll be cigaretting. Yeah,
and
he's
sort
a
of
cigarette.
just kind of like dangling down the side of his cheek.
Like I used to have an Aunt Jerry, and she would literally, and all Jewish people that were of a certain age will know they had an Aunt Jerry. The cigarette would be dangling from the lip.
Stuck on the lip.
And it never fell. And they'd be like, "Listen, darling, I love you. Why don't you give your Aunt Jerry a little kiss?" And you're like, "Whoa, calm down, Aunt Jerry. Come on, and it's just dangling." And you're like, "How does it do that?" And they always had that with their little cigarette case, and that was it was unbelievable.
You know what?
And they all lived to be 100.
You've talked it up again. I feel like a cigarette now.
I've never smoked a cigarette. The only drug I've ever done, other than a cigar, is a scotch. Those are the only two drugs, if you want to call them drugs, I've ever done in my life. I've never done anything
not bad indulgences at all, you know. So no, I'm again blown away. But how do you do it? You kind of checkmated me on the second move, Willy Wonka.
All right, well, let's see who's your next dinner guest, my friend.
Well, now I will go to fiction, and sticking on the topic of food and drink.
Right.
I'm going, by the way, there is another theme. There's another underlying theme. Last week, it was the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Right.
This week, regardless of whether they're into food and drink or not, there's this underlying wisdom. People who are able to give you, this sort of Dean Martin-y kind of observations. And
right.
So this guest that I've got is a fictional chef.
Okay.
Who appears at times of great need.
Oh, okay.
Now, it's Chef Gusteau from Ratatouille.
Oh, okay.
The famous French chef who could concoct anything special, but for the little rat would appear as his motivation, as his guide, and would inspire him. Not everyone can cook, but anyone can cook, if you know what I mean. I don't know if you remember the movie. It's one of my favorite Pixar, cartoony kind of movies because it's, set in Paris, my favorite city in the world. But I wanted a French chef. Having spoken about, foodies, I wanted a French chef, the classical.
Gotcha.
And I thought that everyone would divide, but Gusteau would unite. Everyone would have to like Gusteau.
Of course. He would cook.
And he would just float above the dinner table as a bubble because he's dead. So sort of a Buddha moment kind of thing.
Ooh, very nice. All right.
But
I like that.
I don't know. I wanted to be eclectic again. So that's where I went.
All right. I like the Gusteau, Ratatouille. Okay, very nice. I like that. I could chill with the rat. All right. So to stick on my last person is the third one I'm going to do is a nonfiction. This next one is something you said last week, and it made me think of this chef, and I just smiled the whole week thinking of this guy. And this would be I don't know if I'd eat what he'd cook, but just him at the table would be a blast. The Swedish Chef from the Muppets.
Birdie.
That guy to me would be like the Swedish Chef all day long. I don't know what he says. I don't know if I want to try anything he cooks, but I think we would just be laughing our butts off the whole day.
He's always wrestling with the chicken, trying to kill the chicken in the kitchen with a big knife. Yes, with a big chopper.
Yep. I figured it would be entertaining.
That's sort of ambient noise. You've got ambient noise at the table. Birdie. Yes.
I figured Dean Martin would be laughing or drunk and fall down, and your Gusteau from Ratatouille would just, he would enjoy it, and Willy Wonka and the Oompa Loompas would just sit there and shake their heads. So I'm like, that would be awesome.
We've got a bit of a cartoony kind of setup this week. There's a little bit of a very colorful, very cartoony, very out there, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
but it's very cool. I like that.
There's no sedate characters here. Everyone has got something going on, some sparkle.
Correct. But it's better than, you see people, who do you want to have at dinner? And it's like, well, I want to meet George Washington. And I don't want to meet these guys. I could care less. I want to meet people, and whether fiction or nonfiction, that are interesting, that at dinner, it's a 1 hour dinner is going to turn into a 12-hour event. That's what I look for. Like when you hang out with your buds and you're having scotch and cigars somewhere, and you get there at 6 o'clock at night, and the next thing you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. That's what I look for when you say let's pick dinner guests for Scotch and Cigars. That's how I look at it.
You want guests that you can be comfortable with and incidentally learn something from, and
Correct.
also have a joke with. Really, that's really what you want. Someone who's overly serious. Yeah, I guess they've got their place. But no, this is a colorful table.
This is one where you're gonna, as my one friend would say, you're gonna wet your pants laughing. This is gonna be one of those where you're really just gonna be like, for Dean Martin, it's gonna be like Rat Pack stories, which I'm sure would be hysterical. Willy Wonka.
I'm not taking stuff too seriously as well.
Right. Nobody there is gonna take stuff too seriously. Even Wonka taking stuff seriously is not really serious, right? Because he's just out there, like he's a few fries short of a Happy Meal to an extent. In Gusteau, I think he would just go with the flow. And the Swedish Chef, you wouldn't know what he's saying anyway. Who would care? He would just be running around, and you'd be just like, look at this guy, yeah, with a cigar, and you'd be like, all right, I could deal with this. So I like that.
So as a finale for me, now all this having been said and done, my last guest, huge foodie, huge.
Right.
Wrote a book about food, and not a cookbook, by the way, and not a cookbook.
Okay.
Hugely into his drink.
Okay.
Hugely into having a good time.
Okay.
Let me censor myself.
Right. Okay.
But ultimately took things too seriously.
Right.
So a mixture of both things. Cigar smoker as well.
Oh, nice. I think I may know who it is.
Do you know where I'm going with it?
I was going to say Anthony Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain may have copied the person that I'm talking about.
Okay, so who was the person?
Ernest Hemingway.
Oh, of course. How dumb of me.
And the book that I was referring to is called A Movable Feast, where I don't know if you've read it. It's one of my favorite. I'm an avid Ernest Hemingway fan for all sorts of reasons. I was hooked when I read Death in the Afternoon, which was about bullfighting, and however gruesome it sounds, it gave me a different perspective on that. But Ernest Hemingway, big game hunter, anything manly, anything visceral, big game hunting, whether it's in Africa or whether it's shooting in the Midwest or whatever it may be. He traveled the world and he drank. If you read any book, literally every other page is about having a drink.
Yes.
And every third or fourth page is about eating a wonderful meal. And then what drink has gone with what meal. Interesting enough, even as I'm talking about Ernest Hemingway, he didn't talk much about cigars, but in real life, he was a big cigar smoker.
Cigar smoker, yeah. Now,
and there's
every year in Key West, just so you know, but every year in Key West, they have the Ernest Hemingway lookalike contest.
That's the lookalike competition. That's right. Yeah.
And everybody, all these guys that, are big fat white guys with beards, descend on Key West, and there's like an Ernest Hemingway fest. I don't think they smoke cigars. And his Cuba connection, he lived in Cuba for a while, if I'm not mistaken, and he smoked tons of cigars.
Yeah, he lived in Cuba for a while. He lived in Paris when he was a younger man, when he was married, first marriage. He traveled extensively in Africa and went on safari. He lived in the Midwest. There was a magazine, the something Star, I can't remember, the Kansas Star. That's what he used to write for. I thought one of my literary heroes, who happens very much to coincide with the theme today of dinner and drinks and cigars. I stuck to literary guests this week, and I thought there's a tie, and this guy is gonna drink and eat with us and smoke with us for the next 2 or 3 days. Rumor had it that he'd stay in a bar for 2 or 3 days. Yeah. So Ernest Hemingway.
Yeah, he would outdrink us, out-eat us, and out-everything us.
I've been to the bar in Paris, Harry's bar in Paris, where apparently the Bloody Mary was invented for him.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's my understanding. And then lots of drinks have been invented around Hemingway. But that one,
Very nice. All right.
What do
Well,
you think?
I like so far. I think it's going to be a wonderful dinner. So now I took a nonfiction chef that I love,
A
and I remember
non-fiction chef.
as I remember as a child. But now I've read her autobiography, her biography, and now I know more about her. I'm fascinated by her, and so this would be Julia Child. So
Julia Child.
Julia Child was the first one to ever have like a cooking show in America, which made all these cooking shows possible. Like after her, there was the Galloping Gourmet. If it wasn't for her, there'd be no Anthony Bourdain. She wrote like an American French cooking book. Julia Child.
In what decade would this have been?
She would have been in the 60s and the 70s and into the 80s. She would have been famous. And the Saturday Night did a famous sketch of her where Dan Aykroyd plays Julia Childs, and she's like, oh, no, no, and he pretends he cuts her wrist and there's just blood spewing all over. It's hysterical. But the reason I picked her is because during World War II, she worked for the OSS.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So Julia Child to me was like, you're an interesting lady. I think having you at dinner, if you could tell stories, would be interesting. And her husband was an OSS agent, and I think then a CIA agent. But yeah, Julia Child to me was fascinating. She was more than she appeared.
I have to read up about it. We had an equivalent in this country, Fanny Craddock, in the 60s and 70s. So I was very British, and then after that in the 80s, Delia Smith. But Julia Child is one now I have to research because
let me just give you
into the conversation.
Julia Child. She was an American chef. Here, let me just read this really quick for you. Julia Child, American chef. She was born in 1912. Wow. She died in 2004. Her husband was Paul. I'm just trying to see. Her show was, I think, called just like Cooking with Julia or something. But yeah, she had a whole show going on, and her show ran for like 30 years. So she was, but she was a spy during the Second World War. So I thought that was fascinating that she was a spy. And I was like, interesting. And then I read some books on her, which made it more interesting. HBO Max, whatever they're called this week, did a series on her, more interesting. And then I remembered as a kid, when summer break, I would watch, it was Julia Child, and then I'd watch The Galloping Gourmet, and then it'd be another chef, and I'd be like, oh, okay, I got my, like, so I learned how to cook a little bit through that. And Julia Childs was always fascinating to me, just her like, oh, no, 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 no. And then Saturday Night destroyed her in a good way with a skit. And I was just like, this is just too funny.
Through the magic of YouTube, I can now go and research Julia Child. I can see that sketch. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah. And you'll see the sketch, and you're just going to like see the sketch and then see her. And you're going to be like, oh my God, they were spot on. And Aykroyd or Belushi, whoever played Julia Child in the sketch, is hysterical because she's doing her usual choppy. And then it's like he pretends like he slips with the knife. So, and a little bit of blood starts coming out. And then she's drinking, and it's just the drinking the blood. And it's like, oh my God. And during her show, she would drink while she cooked. So I don't know if she smoked cigars or scotch, but I'm going to assume she was a tough broad as of the era, broad of the era, not a broad. Like you can't say broad today because people go, oh, but she was a broad of that era. I think a tough broad that would have smoked cigars. And
I'm really glad you brought her onto the dinner table because once again, it was lacking in female company. And I kind of, I'm getting a little bit conscious of that. I would like to mix it up. Yeah. But there you go, an inspired choice. I'm not aware of her. I'm going to go and research her and watch stuff about her. But I think as six people at dinner, we kind of covered a lot of bases there. We went like cartoon, puppets, movies, contemporaries, oldie worldies. I think there's a lot of that's a nice dinner table. That's a cool one.
This is all our dinner tables so far. This is our third one. All our dinner tables have been phenomenal because every guest brings something special to the table, whether they're fictional or non-fictional, right? Yeah. So it's just
characters. I mean, fictional characters as well, but the characters really bring some gusto, if I can say that, to the table. Incidentally, you don't do this on purpose, but you've done it again this week.
Which was?
With Julia Child, you've given me a suggestion for a theme for next week.
All right, hold on. I gotta make my note now because you're gonna come up with some fakakta crazy thing, and I'm gonna have to like see.
It won't
I
be
can do it.
crazy. It won't be crazy, but I suspect this will be a real duel between you and me.
Okay.
Because you said she was an OSS agent.
Yes.
So Agent James Bond came into my brain.
Okay.
How about for next week, our 3 dinner guests are 3 Bond villains.
Ooh, 3 Bond villains. Okay.
So you pick your 3 Bond villains, and I pick my 3 Bond villains. Now, I think that could be a great episode, but I'm gonna try and mix it up a bit. Okay. Can we throw Bond girls in there?
Oh, because you got to throw a pussy galore.
So
3 Bond villains could be Bond girls.
So the suggestion is 3 Bond villains accompanied by a Bond girl.
Ooh.
So couples. So 3 couples, basically.
Okay. So Bond villains and Bond girls. And they don't have to be from that. You can pick one from one movie and one from another and put them together.
Absolutely. Mix it up.
Right? Okay.
But let's get couples dinner going.
Okay.
If you know what I mean.
All right. I like it. So next week, since we're going to be wearing proper attire,
that's right. We're going to be in touch. So it all makes sense. I don't know how you do this. I don't know what kind of brainwaves you're sending to me, but it's all tying up in one way or the other.
All right. Wow, I'm excited about this one. And it's funny because villain-wise...
Hashtag James Bond.
Hashtag James Bond, sure. And which is really funny, I have in my mind already the villains that I like. I have to go find their names. I see them, but I have to now go find them. And the Bond girls are interesting because there were some really sexy ones back in like with Sean Connery's stuff. And then there were some great ones with Daniel Craig and in between. But I kind of like in my mind, the Sean Connery ones were more, I think elegant?
Seductive.
Yes, thank you. They had an elegance and seduction about them. Where today's Bond girls are just sort of like, I got a hot body, big boobs, I'm good. I'm like, okay, eat a hamburger. So, but yeah, I like that. All right, this is going to be very interesting. Wow, Bond's been around, 50 years?
Yeah, I think there's enough of a portfolio for you to pick from.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if we end up picking, if there's the same Bond villain. That doesn't matter. That just means we're, on the same page. Right. But that arose from your Julia Child back history.
OSS. Okay.
Yeah, that's where that came from.
All right. Well,
and already the notion for me, the notion of picking these guests is a fun thing. I'm already wondering. If people have suggestions, I guess they can type them in.
Type them in.
That would be the thing to do.
What dinner guests would they have picked? Would also be kind of an interesting thing. It's like, hey, you guys picked these 6 people. We would have picked these 3 or this one. But if you're just going to throw a name in there, tell us why. Like just to start making up.
Which 3 Bond villains would you pick, and which 3 Bond girls would you pick?
Yeah. And Bond girls are interesting because you got, and not that I picked Miss Moneypenny, but you could like Miss Moneypenny is theoretically a Bond girl.
Oh yeah, she is.
Right. So like all of these women that were
which iteration of
right. I'm saying because you've got the Sean Connery Miss Moneypenny, you've got Roger Moore Miss Moneypenny.
No, she's the same one, wasn't she? She lasted until
okay.
I think she lasted until
Pierce Brosnan.
Was it maybe first Pierce Brosnan movie?
Or Timothy Dalton?
Yeah, well, certainly Timothy Dalton, but I don't know about Pierce Brosnan. But she lasted 4 Bonds she lasted.
Wow. And ended too.
Lazenby.
Right, and the guy that played the tech guy, he lasted until I think almost Daniel Craig.
That's right, Quartermaster. Yeah. He lasted till Brosnan because I remember him saying his goodbye in a Brosnan movie, and then John Cleese took over. Yes,
I remember Cleese took over. He was funny, and then this new kid that's with what's his face with Daniel Craig, but I don't know what they're going to do. Do we know who the new Bond is, by the way?
There is a suggestion. There's this guy, but I don't know. I don't know him. I haven't seen him any before, and I can't remember. I vaguely remembering his face, but I don't know his name.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I'd have Dean Martin as James Bond.
Oh, That would be. You know, can I tell you? I almost want Mike Myers to be. I almost want Mike Myers to be James Bond with a little Austin Powers thrown in. That would be kind of like, yeah, baby. That was just like that was the quintessential James Bond was Austin Powers. Yeah. And the Jaguar. Yes, that would be. That's very cool. And the interesting thing is,
guess who played Austin Powers playing Bond?
Who?
Tom Cruise.
Oh, that's right. He did that cameo appearance. That's right.
Yeah.
But the best cameo that we're going to go off a little bit for Tom Cruise ever was in Thunderstruck, where he plays Les Grossman. That movie where he plays the big fat Jewish
Tropic Thunder, which I haven't seen. I for some reason never got around to watching Tropic Thunder.
All you need to do is YouTube Tropic Thunder, Tom Cruise. And it's 7 minutes of that character, which is all the screen time it was, from his verbiage to his dancing. It is the funniest 7 minutes. And to me, that is the best. I mean, he's done great movies, but to me, that is the best Tom Cruise movie that he was in ever.
As a cameo.
As his little 7 minute cameo playing this big, like he said, it was a combination of a bunch of agents and Hollywood moguls he knew. And just watching it, I was crying. I mean, every now and then when I need a good chuckle, I just punch in Tropic Thunder, Tom Cruise, and find the one that's 7 minutes or 8 minutes long because it has all of it. And I just watch it all. And I just sit there and go, that is hysterical. So it's just like, you got to love that stuff.
Absolutely.
So, they don't make movies like that.
So tux and tie next week?
Tux and tie? Yeah.
Cigar in the hand.
And scotch? Well, for me. So,
and three villains, and three villains, and three. I won't say villainettes, but Bond girls.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Wow, I'm excited about it. I'm getting dressed at 8 o'clock in the morning.
I'm excited about the thumbnail that David's going to put up for this.
Can I now? Here's a secret, just so we're all clear. The thumbnail that puts up is from me, but it's not from me. We have software that AI generates the thumbnail based on what I write. So next week, this software will be interesting because it's all about food. So who knows what it's going to put up. I hope I'm going to highlight the Swedish Chef to see if we can get that just for fun.
Can I give you a text suggestion for the
Sure.
AI input?
Yeah.
So up till now, the thumbnails have been either the ladies or the gents at the beginning sitting around a dinner table. This time, it's going to be a casino table with dinner on it.
Oh, that's for next week.
For next week.
Casino table with a dinner. Okay.
So in other words, the dinner table is replaced by a casino table, but it's got dinner. So we've got a bit of a Bond theme going on.
Yep. Well, if we put in James Bond, it's going to give us roulette tables and whatever.
That's right.
This week it'll be interesting
to see what happens.
Yeah, I want that kind of like 1960. So I will say this for AI, thank God. Because if we had to come up with these graphics on our own, never happening. And then I know we wanted to kind of put the faces of these people on it. But then I think when David went to go try to do that, Getty Images and everybody else and their grandmother was like, I'm sorry, you have to pay us. It's not public domain. And we're like, all right, then put Mickey Mouse, who's out of the public domain now. So, I mean, it was sort of like, screw it. We'll just let AI do it. So
I think you should put Mickey Mouse on every thumbnail from now on.
That would be awesome. Yes, I know, right? And I'm sure at some point Disney will come visit us, and not in a good way. So, they'll send those grumpy dwarfs from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Well, my friend, I love this. So we had Dean Martin, Gusteau from Ratatouille, Ernest Hemingway. We had the Swedish Chef from the Muppets, because I'm a child. We had Willy Wonka, but the Gene Wilder version. Sorry, Johnny and the other guy. And Julia Child, who was an OSS agent, as well as a chef who liked her vino in the afternoon while she cooked.
My guest at this table, my favorite guest at this table is Willy Wonka.
Okay, cool.
I think it's centered around Willy Wonka. Everyone else, wonderful, great. But I think Willy Wonka I just will be enamored. So
yes,
well done.
I thank you. But see, I would be like, Mr. Wonka, can we have this dinner party in your factory? Because if it's the factory from the movie, I'd be like, can we just
factory? That's right.
Yeah. Can we just chill in your factory and enjoy?
And you know what? He'll give you one sweet, and he'll say, "Well, that's the dinner because it's going to change flavor for the next 2 hours." Yep. So, which is what cigars do, which is what expensive cigars do as well. They're complex. They change flavor.
Right. One day we actually should just have a show which we do, or this show, we should just talk about cigars and the complexity of a cigar. Because I think a lot of people don't have a clue of like even how to pair a cigar, whether it's with wine, scotch, Coca-Cola, grapefruit juice, whatever you drink. I don't think they understand even how to pair it or how to, like most people just go to a store, they get a cigar, boom. There's only, I would say, a handful, and I know there's more than aficionados like you and I, we off air, we talk about this cigar is great, and this one's this, and this is that, and this one burns like this, and it tastes like this, and blah, blah. And I don't think a lot of people know that. So it'd almost be like a cigar 101. Maybe not after the bond, we may have more dinner guests, or maybe after the bond guests we talk about, just so people get it like, oh, that's what it is if they're interested. And if they're not, then that's fine.
We could do a little mini series on that one. We'll have a green room discussion on that.
I like that. That's a beauty. So, well, this was a great show. So thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next Saturday with the Bonds and the villains and the Bond girls. Subscribe and like. Get your comments below. Don't forget to look at our shorts, not our personal shorts, but the shorts on YouTube and on Instagram. And we'll be also, you can catch us on Two Old Farts Entertainment or Two Old Farts on wherever you get your playlists. And on YouTube, it's either under Two Old Farts or TOF Entertainment. That's the number 2OF. And you can find us. And we will be back next Saturday morning, bright and early, with more scotch and cigar stuff. And next week, we get to be in Tales. How exciting. So we will see you all next week. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
It's my pleasure.
See you soon. Thank you, sir. Cheers.